VAR is just not working, process-wise. I know the Liverpool owners are furious. They're challenged as they ponder action. Less about really what they can do, more about laying the groundwork in this battle of optics, which it really is. Because, my Lord, what happens if they miss a Champions League place by 2 points at the end of the season, the economics of which are just enormous?
From the Men in Blazers studios in the crap part of Bedford and from the OG crap part of Soho, it's the Men in Blazers video podcast presented by the GFOPs at Camarena, the most awarded tequila.
Oh, we back like the Denver Broncos, and not in a good way. How you doing, David?
I'm doing good, fresh off a big victory for Europa. Rod's been waving my Europa flag all weekend. A big victory against the United States in the Ryder Cup. Lots of scandal, no VAR, but lots of scandal all the same. Had a pretty good weekend, Rog.
Oh, I always think that for these away Ryder Cups, the USA should be allowed to ride with CONCACAF. Can you imagine?
Yeah, all those elite professional Guatemalan and El Salvadorian golfers, Rog.
Be amazing.
There'd be a lot of help.
It's not the golfers we need; it's the fans to counter the Europa fans. Just bring your bags of piss down to the golf course, lads.
Yeah, more plastic lawn chairs.
Yeah, it's not enough lawn chairs in the world for 18 to cover 18 holes. But as a Chicago Bears fan, and also I don't know if you know this, Men in Blazers listeners, I'm also an Everton fan. It has been a dark weekend, and we got a lot of football to get into. But can we, up top, Davo, talk for a moment about Lionel Messi, the Godhead, for just 1 second? And I don't know, dear listeners, if you followed this, but it does feel a little bit as if the Messi needle's falling suddenly off the record. Messi is injured, and we don't know how injured. We don't know where injured. We don't know anything, which I'll circle back to in a moment. But last Wednesday's US Open Cup final, which Miami lost to Houston, was staggeringly the first time in, I think, 17 years of his career that he's been eligible to play in a final and not been fit to take the field. He's had 37 minutes played in the last 23 days of football, and this is not on him. He is a 36-year-old demigod. He's 36, though. That part of it, he will have wear and tear, and he's exploded into the task of being the face of the American game and then some. I mean, didn't we almost have it all? But this weekend, he missed his third straight game against, was it NYCFC? At the very time Inter Miami happened to be pushing for season tickets for next year at vastly increased prices, which are their own story. But what's striking now, Davo, in a normal footballing culture, wouldn't we know exactly what the injury is and how long he'll be out for here? Muscle fatigue or persistent leg injury or whatever. But it seems crazy to me that people all across America are still playing. I mean, I was about to go to Chicago. They're playing midweek. I was going to fly to the city that I love the most and go and witness him take the field there.
I thought you were saying you were going to suit up and boot up.
I could
go and take the field for Chicago.
I mean, my God, DeAndre Yedlin versus Shaqiri, it's worth traveling for, but not quite that much, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here we sort of get onto a little bit of my home patch, which is television, Rog.
I thought you were going to say Miami.
No, well, Miami, Davo Town. But it's we have to understand Messi's deal with Apple is that he has a piece of all of the signups to Apple TV. And
I think some of BritBox threw it in too, didn't he?
Exactly. They just gave him BritBox. They just gave it to him.
He loves BritBox.
So he loves a Miss Marple mystery. So he's got a piece of the sign-up. So Messi's importance to MLS, to this Apple deal, which, by the way, for Apple getting into MLS, the object is not to stay in MLS, it's to prove what they can do for every other sport, potentially take the NBA,
Formula One.
Take everything else afterwards, is that people are signing up for Messi. It's not, much as they, want to see Dax play, they really are there looking for Messi and MLS. And so it starts there, then goes all the way down through season tickets at Miami, then goes into, hey, the season tickets at every other team who plays against Miami and those ticket sales. The entire, militaro-industrial complex of MLS, of Don Garber's world, depends on a belief from the fans that Messi and MLS are indivisible. And the second that Messi is not part of MLS every single weekend, because he can't unfortunately play in every game, I'm sure they've tried to figure out how he could play in every single game, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're essentially saying, if I, to encapsulate what you're saying, MLS without Lionel Messi is like the University of Colorado without Coach Prime. Is that what you're saying? You mean we wouldn't be talking about the Buffaloes if it wasn't for Coach Prime?
But we've been here before. I mean, this was what happened in the North American Soccer League after Pele. It just couldn't survive because everybody wanted to see Pele. In fact, I think there were some seasons where the New York Cosmos played more games than all of the other teams because they were so much more valuable than anything else. I mean, who comes in? This just raises the question of, other than Messi, who else is there? Like, how do you ever replace Messi? It's not like, suddenly you can go to the next player and he's going to be, drive these kind of signups and these kind of subscriptions. So it's a dangerous game that they're playing in MLS right now. And yes, he's 36. He has an injury. Go figure. And, but they probably don't want to talk about it because it will collapse the entire economy.
I know they don't want to talk about it, but football fans are so deeply passionate. They get there's fans who I know who've cared about the club, total diehard fans who loved Inter Miami before there was even a Messi, and MLS fans in general who are trying to cheer a sporting competition as it reaches its high point. And I just say, if we were a normal footballing nation, they would deserve to know what is going on with their team, with the key part of their team, with the key part of the league. But also, news of the extent of the injury would emerge. There would be a battery of journalists, if this was England, being fed either the truth or versions of the truth, or realities with loose touching points to that truth by players, by agents. And the whole thing makes me feel it feels small right now, how under the radar we is. And so as Lionel Messi faces up to this part of the season, hopefully helping Miami make the playoffs, we wish him well. Godspeed, Lionel. Get health. I mean, God, this nation bloody needs you. He's also trying to help Argentina. That's the other sticking point, which is more important to him between the Inter Miami playoffs, which brings a deep financial self-interest, and Argentina qualifying for the World Cup during the international break. I'd just say the surreal silence around it is really deafening.
I have a question. What is Alexi Lalas's point of view on this entire thing?
Set pieces. My pillows are a very good pillow. And what else?
Usually what I like to do, and I think Alexi is probably very happy with this, is I like to hear what his point of view is and then take the opposite point of view. Look now.
When you look now, okay, just take it. Take a second. Take a second. Pull it up. What does he say? I will bet, knowing Alexi, he takes a contrarian position that this is all fair in love and war. And if you don't tell, that's totally fine. It's an entertainment business, not a sports business. And Miami are totally within their rights to do whatever they want. Okay, especially the high season ticket prizes, which are great.
Has to say.
Capitalism.
I've got it. It says, my new album, Melt Away, is out. Straight ahead. American melodic rock, pop sugar for your ears. Check it out.
Check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, but what does he say about this, though? He once supported Hootie and the Blowfish.
He's got some stuff on FanDuel. It's a lot of stuff about VAR. He's taking on the Premier League about VAR, which we'll get to later. That supports Supporters Shield. VAR isn't broken, England is. He doesn't seem to really be in there. I'll have to keep on going deep down while we're podding.
Deep into the messy wormhole.
I'm on Fox News now. I'm now dealing with QAnon. I'm going as far down on Alexi's X account. I
think Lexi's now doing sports on, what's his name? What's the little guy in the bow tie called?
Oh, Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson on his show just goes, and now sports. And then he looks to his right and it's Lexi just sitting at Tucker Carlson's kitchen table, just saying things.
Yeah, he doesn't have the Ryder Cup. He's got an opinion on Robert Kennedy, but not on Messi so far. We'll have to see. Okay, Rog, we've got lots of football to discuss. I'll scroll through Alexi's Twitter, which is, well, eye-opening. But before that, a quick shout-out for everything happening at Men in Blazers World Headquarters this week. Rog, tomorrow, with the return of European football, it's the
I think on Messi, I think Lexi just thinks he was just wandering in as a tourist on January 6th, like everybody else. There was no crime.
Exactly. So what if he was wearing that ridiculous furry suit? It's the return of European Nights, Rog, with you and Rory Smith, and you are going to be talking about the rise of Jude Bellingham. What a player. Absolutely can't wait for this episode. Talking of Champions League, you're also going to host a very special Tuesday Do It Live after tomorrow's game. GFOPs, this is your chance to ask your questions live on the pod. The link is all over our social. Check it out. Also tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday and every day. It's Men in Blazers
every day with day in it.
Every day with day. It's Men in Blazers early kickoff with Sammy from Surrey. It's the Men in Blazers Media Network's daily news pod that gives you all of the big stories at 6 a.m. But this is the important part. It is on a different pod feed.
A better one.
Than this one. Much better pod feed. So if you're not already following this, please search Men in Blazers early kickoff and support and subscribe.
Sammy James, the man with two first names. Dave out. I also want to mention that we are gearing for a shoot with my mate, Arseblog. Oh, the great Andrew, ahead of this week's Arsenal against Manchester City. Epic clash for the ages, trademark. Send in your questions for that beautiful gent, meninblazers@gmail.com. I cannot wait for this.
Absolutely. That will also be on our YouTube channel later this week. So much content going up there right now, Rog. Not that there's any more content than normal. It's just like we are reaching, it's like Niagara Falls.
Do you know, we're interviewing Haaland and Grealish on Thursday together, which is going to be... it's going to be quite. That just may be the apex. In a funny way, I've never been happy. I'll say to Haaland and Grealish as we have a post-interview cigarette.
Yeah, it's a World War II movie. Rog, absolutely love it. Okay, let's kick this podcast off with a toast.
Oh, I want to raise my third first Bud Light of the day to AC Milan, who are soaring again this weekend. 2-0 win over Lazio, second place in Serie A, behind Inter only on goal difference. Trip to Dortmund for Champions League this week. Pooley versus maybe Gio. I say for Milan, Yunus Musa came on, I think around 29 minutes. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who the Italian commentators call Loftus, had to limp off. Godspeed, Loftus. But Yunus Musa looked tasty, looked magical, truly surged. But the headlines went to Christian Pulisic. Gazzetta dello Sport noted how bloody happy he looks. He found the back of the net again this weekend. Third goal of the season. Big goals too. This one opening the scoring. Fine first-time shot. Lashing home with his wrong foot. Chemistry that he's creating with Leao is magical to see. Also to hear the entire San Siro, that cathedral of football, chanting his name after the goal was really music, sweet music to every American fan's ears. After all he's bloody been through, these moments, we now just don't take them for granted. They never get old. Cue the Italian commentators shouting on television, "Puli, puli, puli! Sick, sick, sick!" Which I just love. I get it, but I don't get it. And I hope it catches on. Oh, we'll never take that for granted. Puli, puli, puli! Sick, sick, sick.
Oh, wonderful stuff. I do, Rog, have a report from Alexi Lalas' Twitter.
Okay, please.
I've got his Republican debate power rankings, but still scrolling. Yeah,
you're making that up.
No, I'm absolutely not. He does power rankings for the Republican debate, both pre-debate and post-debate.
Who won?
In his mind,
Stu Holden.
Yeah, in his mind, he seems to quite like Ramaswamy.
Mr. Q. He loves Mr. Q.
But I've lost his rankings now. But yeah, he's done. Oh, here they are. He likes DeSantis. He likes DeSantis. He's still no big moment, he writes, but most presidential.
I don't know what to do with this information.
Yeah, I've got that. I'll keep on going down and see if I can find anything about Lionel Messi.
We used to have a nation.
Okay, Rog. To the Premier League football. Tottenham 2, Liverpool 1. two of the Premier League's unbeaten teams clash in a clash of two larger-than-life managers. And if ever a game of football delivered hot takes, this was it. It started in the 26th minute when Curtis Jones was sent off after a VAR review, or as Alexi would call it, an English VAR review for a foul on Yves Bissouma. Even after that, Liverpool kept coming, and in the 34th minute, they were denied what appeared to be a very clear Luis Diaz goal. Just 2 minutes later, down the other end, Spurs took the lead thanks to an incisive move that Sonny stabbed home. But even after all of that, Liverpool pulled level through a Cody Gakpo goal just before halftime. Liverpool were then reduced to 9 men. Diogo Jota was sent off for a somewhat controversial double booking, certainly first half of it. And after Alisson Becker's meaty paws of justice kept Spurs at bay for almost the entire game, a Pedro Porro cross was fizzed across the 6-yard box, and Joel Matip slammed it into his own net. And Ange Postecoglou defeats his favourite childhood team as Spurs move up to second, just 1 point off Manchester City.
Epic clash of two of the last four unbeaten teams going into this weekend. Two clubs with emotionally empathetic leaders and all the momentum, all the good vibes seem to be surging behind them. Liverpool knew they could go top with a win after their stealth excellent 5 straight victories, and more. Spurs knew they'd only beaten Liverpool once in the last 21 matchups. The storyline going into this one, we found out, this is incredible, Ange was actually a Liverpool fan as a kid. I actually loved the way he handled it pre-game. Yeah. He said, like any kid, I had the posters up on my wall. Liverpool was my team, but you grew up, things change. I used to love Happy Days back then, but I don't have pictures of the Fonz on my wall today either, which I bet he does. But he did proceed to talk about how the identity of Liverpool back then, the mythology of Liverpool in the 70s, the old boot room, which produced manager after legendary manager, the talent pipeline, the aura of invincibility, the sense of self, all things he does admire and wants to inculcate in his team or wherever he goes. Sense of truth, sense of confidence. GFOP, Vlad Mott emailed me to say, I hope Klopp wears a Fonz leather jacket when he comes out of the tunnel. How magnificent would that have been, Devo, if Jurgen Klopp came out for this game wearing the Fonzarella leather jacket, maybe even water skis and mime jumping a shot?
Ja, ich bin der Fonz.
I am the Fonzie.
It's me. Ich bin den Fonz. Love it.
Kangtens, they're cool, you kinders. Liverpool Open.
Montag, Dienstag, happy days.
Liverpool opened. I mean, like a love supreme. Salah, guile, poise, muscle. Dude is actually now bordering. We can talk about this on another pod. About being the most haired bald man I have ever seen. He looks almost like an Egyptian David Crosby out there at this point. Spurs attempted to muster a fist. Maddison moving them forward, but leaving them vulnerable in transition. There was a fine double save from Vicario. All of this ancient history, which has been written out, the telling. But there was a spinning Gakpo, and then I think Andy Robertson on the follow-up that he repelled. But then the moment which began to change the game. 24th minute, Curtis Jones and Bissouma clash. Jones went in, ultimately into Bissouma's leg with studs raised, but he was aiming for the ball, and his foot actually glanced off the top of that ball at high speed, then went into the player. I think one of these we talked about a lot recently in slow motion. This was the image that greeted the referee when he arrived at the screen to witness as a still. Still looks like Jones absolutely crunching Bissouma. But it was such a soft red card. I mean, this still made it look like a grotesque, premeditated attempt to maim the Spurs player. But in real time, really a foot bouncing off a greasy ball into the leg. Dale Johnson, the quite excellent rules expert on ESPN, referred back to Marlo Gusto's red card for Chelsea against Aston Villa last weekend. He wrote that when the replays show that an opponent's leg has effectively been bent by the tackle, that is seen as evidence of excessive force. But David, I'm an Evertonian. Don't know if you know that about me, part 27, but that didn't feel like a red card to me. Did it to you?
Yeah, well, look, we've seen a few of these this season. I have to say, as a Chelsea fan, the Marlo Gusto challenge last week in the Aston Villa game, he was sent off, and on that one, he got the ball first. Yes, but it was a sliding tackle with a little bit more intent and then went through the guy. Look, I think I'm fine with it if this is what the rule is going to be. And certainly in slow motion, it looked terrible. I would caution again, as I've said before, looking at these things in slow motion when the game is played in regular speed seems a little crazy to me, and it seems unfair to the players involved and the spirit of the game. But if the rule is going to be that it doesn't matter whether or not you were fairly going for the ball, it doesn't matter if there was no recklessness, it doesn't matter if there was no slide, no intent. But if you happen to sort of rebound off the top of the ball and you go into a player's upper ankle, which he definitely went into his upper ankle, it doesn't matter. That's going to be a straight red. That's going to be a decision. We then need to see that evenly applied across the whole of football. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see, as we've already seen this season, it's not going to be evenly applied.
It would get worse, or at least much more traumatic for Liverpool. 10 men now, Liverpool, because Luis Diaz went and scored, racing in on goal, finishing so smartly, swiftly, sharply, wrapping the ball across goal from an acute angle. The linesman raised his flag quickly, and VAR at first seemed to reinforce the decision. Stay with me here. This is almost as if VAR was being run by Duncan Ferguson or Wayne Rooney. It was that astonishing. It was honestly, first of all, can we just say the goal by Luis Diaz was jaw-dropping in its own right. But when they put the photograph up, the one, the customary one where they decide offside, Diaz looked miles onside by about a meter. And, it felt surreal, confusing. For Liverpool fans immediately, it felt blatant and brazen. And in the good old days, it was such an injustice. I think Bob Dylan would have written a best-selling protest song immediately about it. But this is what we know happened behind the scenes, because PGMOL, the referee association, put out a statement. By the way, they put out a statement well after the game. Normally, they put one out during the game. They normally brief NBC and Sky Sports during the game. They waited until after the game, which I think Jamie Carragher, who works at Sky, knew was a very, very, very bad sign. But they acknowledged, quote, a significant human error occurred during the first half of Tottenham Hotspur versus Liverpool. Turns out, Davo, essentially this, as I understand it, the VAR operator, who we now know, their name, we didn't know this name, most of us, but that's how reviled Darren England and the referee, Simon Hooper. They had ultimately a slapstick miscommunication. The VAR guy had thought the ref had awarded the goal on the field onside. So he checked, saw the goal was onside, and said to him, "Check complete." Or in whatever accent, whatever kind of check. How do they say it? They were like, check complete.
Oh, check complete.
Yeah, check
complete.
Check complete. Big sigh.
Darn England out.
England. Oh,
England.
Big sigh. Yo. Check complete. Which was supposed to signal that the goal should have stood, but the goal had been ruled offside. It wasn't being ruled onside on the field. So the ref interpreted those two words, the first two, not the big sigh and the England out, but the check complete. He interpreted those two words as meaning rule it out, it was offside. And here's what I don't understand, David. When the VAR gent watching along saw to his horror that the referee was playing on and overruling the goal, why didn't he get back into his ear and say, no, mate, you didn't understand me? Instead of sitting there, I imagine him in a puddle of his own fear and paralysis and PP and just let everything wrong unravel. VAR, like so much of England, not working very well this weekend, David.
Yeah, what you're suggesting is at halftime, even, they could have come in and said, no, I said check complete, the goal was a goal, and they could have then made it a goal. Whoa, that would be a whole new level. If every single time the Premier League Pogmol had to rebalance the game at halftime, that would be amazing.
They do. There's a moment shortly after the incident that English commentators have pinpointed at the moment when the referee hears, I'm assuming, England in his ear, being like, "Oh, lads, we have effed up big time here." It's like he pulls this weird grimace, like, "Oh my God." And just to be clear, this was not a bad refereeing mistake that we write them off almost every week now. Every team suffered. The VAR worked.
The robots. The robots did a great job.
Robots. What?
The problem is the humans.
Yeah. So how do you understand? It was a miscommunication between referees here, right? They stuck to protocol. The game cannot be rolled back once plays restarted, rather than correct there. They covered for each other in the moment, which is embarrassing. It's like the Soviet era.
Which we've heard before, when finally we had a revisit of that Tottenham-Chelsea game last year when, the VAR covered for the on-field ref. Like, we've seen that happen before. I would say the one thing I'd say is a tiny bit of progress. I can imagine this is not the first time this has happened. I would find it remarkable if this is the first time this has happened. This is certainly the first time that Pugmole has come out and actually said, not the first time they said we've made a mistake.
14 times since the beginning of last season. 14 times they've said since the start of last season, they said we've gotten it wrong. This one was unique and game-changing because this was not we got it wrong. This was like the communication between us, the actual process was an injustice, not the decision.
Rog, what I'm saying is, yes, 14 times they've made a comment that they've got it wrong, but I'm sure this is not the first time that communication has failed. It just seems really unlikely to me that this is the first time that has happened. Anyway, they admitted their mistake, which is good. They could have done it earlier, but they did finally admit it. But the situation here, and I only remember the early development with Hawkeye, the company that did this technology. And there was conversations early on when Hawkeye just wanted to make the decisions. They wanted their computers to make the decisions. And Pugmole were like, no. We need humans checking that the computers are making these decisions.
Yeah, they can have semi-automated offside decisions. It's actually the teams that voted not to have them in when it was last debated.
So, and this may be the argument to go and do it in that way. Because, communication is tough. There's somebody who's offsite. I do this, we use communication on TV all the time, and it's sometimes tough, even when people are in the same building, let alone in different places. This seems to be an unprecedented error. And it seems no way. And I do think that there is an element that we had some of the VARs seem to have called a game in the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, but they're in England and Big Side, both of them were refereeing a game, freelancing essentially in the United Arab Emirates I think it was a UAE Pro League game between Sharjah and Al Ain on Thursday, 8 p.m. kickoff local time there, followed by a 16-hour round trip essentially to be back for this game, which is slightly insane for many levels. It feeds into a lot of conspiracy theories, which, ultimately football is like the rest of life. Conspiracy theories are now just an awful part of life, but it's a terrible optics decision to freelance and make money in a nation state, which owns a nation state football team in an era in which there's already refereeing scandals in Spain, in Italy, in Germany. We've not had them that we know of in England yet, but the Referees Association definitely needs to get a grip on that. It feels like at the very least, it feeds nonsense conspiracy theories. Both referees were stood down from other games last weekend. But the problem is here, David, how do you get better referees? Ultimately, is what we're talking about. A job which, right down to the grassroots, no one wants because of the enormous abuse which has become normative in our social media reality.
Yeah, well, one thing, Roger, is, I'm going to say this, we tend to overestimate malevolence and we underestimate incompetence. And this is just incompetent. It's a system, but there are processes that can be put in place to avoid this from happening. And that could be the automation. I guarantee they will figure out a new way to make sure that the goal check is for a disallowed goal rather than for an allowed goal. And that will be immediate.
I think they should just have Lee Dixon ruling on all of them. He knows.
But every challenge will be allowed. Challenge will be allowed.
No, that's
except against Arsenal.
That's Jim Beglin, who genuinely commentates every Everton game. An Everton player will get flattened, and they'll show the replay of this player getting decapitated. They'll always be like, "There's nothing in that. There's nothing in that. I don't see anything in that." By the way, the Premier League. Hear me out here, because you're a game show man. You understand this stuff better than I do. Premier League should have a challenge protocol like the NFL, where Jurgen Klopp should throw down Klopp's baseball cap and have the ruling challenge.
I mean, they need to take more time to. Yes, you could do that.
And then they'd appeal to VAR, which, as they said in Slow Horses, is like trying to explain Norway to a dog.
But there's no way that the game. I sort of agree with where you were going with the earlier point. Is that the second that they realized they made this fatal mistake, the game should have been stopped. That goal should have been awarded, and they should have gone back to that moment in time. I got to tell you, on a quiz show, that's what we would have done. Is we would have gone back to that moment in time and dealt with it then. So, I feel terrible for Liverpool fans. I don't believe there's a conspiracy against Liverpool. I don't believe there's a conspiracy against Jurgen Klopp. But this was a mistake that I really doubt is the first time it's happened. and they're going to have to come up with a system to go and figure out. But the problem is not VAR. The problem is humans, and that was the problem before VAR came in as well. It's humans. It's got even worse now because humans get abused on all of these social platforms, and there was abuse after this game as well, not only to the refs, also to the players. It just is. It's a mess.
But as I said, 14 times PGMOL has had to put out an admitting of a mistake. And each time, I feel like we've kind of brushed it under the carpet and said these things do even themselves out over the course of a season. But doing that now seems to obscure the truth that VAR is just not working, process-wise. I know the Liverpool owners are furious. They're challenged as they ponder action. Less about really what they can do, more about laying the groundwork in this battle of optics, which it really is. Because, my Lord, what happens if they miss a Champions League place by 2 points at the end of the season, the economics of which are just enormous? But there will be no replay of this game. That's not how it works when Thierry Henry handles the ball against the Irish and the French get into it. You don't have replays. But I do want to posit one possible solve, one way to bring peace to I'm just spitballing to try and bring some healing. What if Klopp and Ange Postecoglou, Dave, have a Russian slap fight?
Okay, go on.
I'm as
interested.
far as I've gotten, who wouldn't want to watch those two units just shirtless, just letting it, all that niceness, just letting it all out? Wouldn't that be, don't you think in itself it would be healing?
Could we do it as a Happy Days themed fist fight, knife fight? There could be a dance number in there as well.
Shirtless, but leather jackets.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous game. Irrespective, and I do feel for you, Liverpool fans. Spurs now ascendant. Maddison scurrying, spinning, trying to take advantage of all the time and the space. 36-minute. Richie sprung. Gomez sleeping. Ran in. Rolled that ball across to a speeding Sonny, who just don't miss. 6th goal of the season for him. What a human being. Liverpool, talking about incredible human beings. They're more than mentality monsters. They beat Newcastle with 10 men. That mindset, belief, wonder, no doubt, free of fear. They know with their quality, I think they conceded first, but won in their last 2 away games, that they can get back into anything. Drove the ball forward, Gakpo back to goal, Span finished with a spin so bloody savage. I think he strained his knee. Just an incredible ability to drop the hammer. In Judge Ivor Bennett time too, Davo. This was tenacity personified.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool were deeply, deeply impressive in this game, as were Tottenham. Neither team really deserved to lose, and particularly Liverpool, who put up such a fight with, all of the travails, all of the things that they dealt with during the game. I mean, I'd say 3 very controversial decisions, 1 outright wrong, 2 other controversial decisions which affected them. And Liverpool and Tottenham, it's very rare to say 2 teams were defiant and showed tremendous heart, showed tremendous courage, and neither really deserved to lose or draw.
Yeah, and Spurs second half stepping up for that kill. Maddison opened up with his body arcing towards the corner. Alisson, such a handsome man, such a terrible new haircut, such a great goalkeeper. 3 things can be true. Got his meaty Rio Grande paw in the way. Such focus from the big man. I think he stopped Sonny within seconds too. Jota, slightly less focused. God bless. He had a game that was a bit like watching Everton's entire season, just stuck within the course of 60 seconds. Came on as a second half substitute, 2 yellows. First for a clip, vaguely accidental, let's say, on Udogie. Second, ill-judged, lunging at the same player after ceding possession. This one, silly. File it under just bloody silly. Klopp didn't even look at him as he came off the field, which tells you all you need to know. It took the energy out of the game. Spurs knew that they should now win, and some. Liverpool could only play spoiler. Bringing on subs slowly, slowing that game down. The stadium, bizarrely, and my brother was there. Nige went up from Liverpool for the game, the red bastard, and I talked to him about this, that the stadium actually felt oddly quiet, oddly filled with unease, a sense of something that should be won slipping away. It's got to be said, Spurs were oddly hesitant against mere 9 men. It felt like they had more to lose than to win. And that haunting knowledge of years, layers of Spursiness, of charging in and being undone, having a trap. It must be a trap. The 9 men must be a trap. We're not going to fall for it. Just years of humiliation will do that to you. And we saw a strange inability to swing that ball side to side at pace to create the overloads against 9 men. Meanwhile, Virgil, we've got to say, Kanate, Matip were a wall. They were magnificent, Dave.
Yeah, they were superb. Their lateral movement, their vision, the pressure, even with 9 men, always brought on the passer. It was superb. And as you went into the final minute of the 90 plus 6 or whatever it was, you just didn't really see Tottenham scoring.
Yeah, Peter Drury himself, and he knows the result. He writes the script, I think.
I think we know that.
He started to wonder, is this the first flat day of the Postecoglou era? It was a draw that felt like a loss we were watching. And then right at the death, the last attack, oddly patient, to be honest, in a way few Spurs attacks had been. Manor Solomon moving down that left, flinging the ball from left to right, and then Porro slapping that ball back. The cruelest, poetic flourish by the bastard Premier League writers, I got to say. The winning goal, 96th minute, almost the last touch of the ball. All that resilience by Liverpool, and it was one of their own who turned the ball into their own net. A tired Matip threw a shattered leg at that Porro cross, slicing into his net. Davo, devastating.
Yeah, it was. It was interesting. The Tottenham fans booing that Tottenham attack as they showed that patience, as they recycled the ball back from Kulusevski. But then the ball finds Porro, makes a very good, little, sort of almost faint run. Not a run that gains too much attention, but just a little run. So he receives the ball, a stealth run, and takes the ball. Great ball. Asked some questions. Rog went into the mixer, and Matip, of all players, who'd had such a sensational second half, puts the ball in his own net. His heart, clearly heartbroken at the end, on his knees, has to be picked to his feet by his keeper. It was really heartbreaking.
Not for Porro. Not for Porro. He ran over to the Spurs fans in the corner, held up his jersey to the camera as if he was bloody Messi. Chutzpah, I think it's called in Spanish. A final whistle. Fascinating watching Ange Postecoglou. Just a dramatic ending. Fans going mental. Players losing their mind. They had just beaten Liverpool for the first time in 6 games. Losing their minds. Ange, careful not to get too carried away. This Ange was stoic. He knows, Davo, that there is much, much more to come. This will be... there will be moments of real challenge ahead. And I was fascinated watching his demeanour. Doesn't want to get too far ahead of himself. It's almost too good to be true this start. Remember, he warned the first month would be terrible, but his Spurs are now beating both Manchester United, Liverpool, are second, 1 point back. Liverpool fans will talk about this in a moment, understandably seething. But to me, that, we'll talk about it, cannot diminish the reality of the joy that Spurs fans feel. 2 things can be true. Liverpool were very, very, very hard done to in this game, but Spurs keep on surging. Second place. They'll have to definitely work on being man up in games. They were shoddy in that second half, but they've now trailed twice at Arsenal, pulled it back. They were losing to Sheffield United, dug deep, found a late way to win. Something is happening, Davo. I hope it's something profound at Spurs under Ange, and Spurs fans should savour it.
I agree. And yet, still, if I was offered a future in Tottenham and a future in Liverpool, I'd still buy the Liverpool future. And, I'm not a big Jurgen Klopp guy, but I'd say that Liverpool, and I have tremendous Tottenham sympathies, but I'd be still buying the futures in Liverpool right now. After this performance and after watching their growth this season. And I think, yes, they're going to regard this as, 2 points lost, or at least 1 point lost.
I think Liverpool will regard this as a point at least ripped cruelly and just unjustly out of their tenacious, magnificent palms. I thought they were phenomenal. Yes, they lost the same day as both Manchester teams and Everton too. I can't remember when the hell that happened last. But I think they were screwed, absolutely screwed, in a way that, honestly, anyone that comes from Liverpool is doubly haunting. In the 80s, we were cut adrift by the government. We were really left to rot as a city under Margaret Thatcher, always scapegoated, always screwed. And at times growing up there, you felt and you were, the system was against you. And watching this, the injustice, the pain, honestly felt a bit like that all over again. And remember, I am a horrible man. I am 99% made up of Schadenfreude. But even I felt pain, sadness. I felt for Liverpool on this day. And I'll say to Reds fans, I feel your pain. I feel for you. But remember, it could be worse. You could be Everton.
Absolutely. Rog, this just in, Alexi Lalas' podcast, he did address the Messi situation, and he believes that Inter Miami and MLS, he gave them a transparency warning, Roger.
Be less transparent or more transparent?
No, be less transparent. Insist that Argentina's star's injury status must be made very clear ahead of matches. He stopped short of saying that they need to be more transparent in general, but just ahead of matches, they need to be more transparent. So, fair game.
Well
Alexi.
played, baby.
Well played.
My pillows are excellent pillows.
Absolutely. Okay, Wolves 2, Manchester City 1. Perfect on the season. Manchester City pay a visit to the Black Country to take on a fledgling Wolves team that had won just once in their first 6. And with Pep watching on from the mezzanine level where he was serving a touchline ban, Wolves jumped out ahead in the 13th minute when Pedro Neto's unrelenting run and cross ended up with Ruben Dias turning the ball into his own net. Julian Alvarez leveled it up with a quite spectacular free kick in the 58th minute. But in the 66th, a player who Pep had referred to in his pre-match press conference as the Korean guy, Hwang Hee-chan, thrust home a winner. City dropped points for the first time this season, but remain top of the table. But other than that, how was the play, Mr. Guardiola?
First, Newcastle beat City in the Carabao midweek, and Pep, you can tell just how much he was rooting for a City quadruple this City, Davo. Yeah. By just how much he said he was not interested in the quadruple at all. Into this one against Wolves and their back five, a wilting team who'd lost their last 6 games straight against City by an aggregate score of 19 goals to 3. Pep, actually not on the sideline, in the stands, banished for yellow card accumulation for dissent, but it was Rodri's self-humiliating red card that really created the most intrigue. Pep unleashed Kovacic and recently former Wolves midfielder Nunes in his place. Nunes getting booed with every single touch after going on strike to force a move to City for $65 million this summer. He had a miserable time, was hooked at the half. Early on, absolutely no sign of all that was to come. City got into their missionary position of utter dominance, creating early chances for Haaland. But then Foden and Kovacic conspired to cough the ball up at the top of the final third. Huge mistake was to make Neto the recipient. What a footballer. He did what it says on the tin. He burned down the flank. This was Wolves' first serious attack, a one-man solo mission, like Portuguese John Rambo style, down that flank, shrugging off first Foden, then Ake, tried to bring him down. But Neto would not go down. He rolled the ball across. It clipped off a diving Ruben Dias past a stranded, stunned Ederson. Honestly, astonishing moment in and of itself. But it was still so early in the game. Neto, smart enough when you watch it, to signal to the giddy, astonished Wolves fans, like, stay chill, tranquilo, rather than lose their crap. He knew there was so much more to come, but it was magnificent.
Yeah, and Wolves, they don't seem to have enough to compete against the big teams in the Premier League. They don't seem to have enough to compete against the smaller teams in the Premier League, Rog. And yet, they find more than moments, they can string together minutes of glorious football, inspired, especially in front of their home fans. Very unlucky against another Manchester team earlier in the season. Remember that that big moment when they should have got more. That was another big VAR controversy, another big refereeing controversy. But this against fellow Manchester, they're looking good. And, there's no way. I mean, 1-0 up. You were just imagining Manchester City were going to come back and take them.
Oh, you've done it now.
At that moment, you were happy at that moment to think, a nice thing happened for Wolves.
Yes, one nice thing in that 5-1 ultimate scoreline. But we're going to admire Neto. 4 goals, 1 assist, I think. Neto starting almost, many of them are just one-man acts of divine creation on a team so poor. Their only win this season before this one had previously been against Everton, and I think that's actually only worth 2 points. Wolves, you patted them on the head. You were like, admirable fight. They did defend the centre. They seeded the flanks. They looked to break when they could. Shades of the old Nuno days. City flung on young Norwegian next superstar Oscar Bob, who flashed and fluttered, drew a foul on the edge of the area, which the world's most stealth goal machine, Julian Alvarez, absolutely whipped over the wall, straight into the corner. Technique, mastery, felt like we knew then what was to come. But Craig Dawson hooked a Foden goal-bound shot off the line. Wolves went down the field straight away through Semedo. City's rearguard all over the place in transition. Panic in the box, and Hwang, that striker, the one you've already mentioned, Pep could not remember his name in the pre-match conference, referred to him in typical, this was Pep in his worst Mean Girls Pep style as the Korean guy, fake praising Wolves' attacking qualities. He said they have Neto, Cunha, and the Korean guy. And it was magnificent to watch Pep don wax wings, head straight for the sun. Hwang lashed home. Pep, David, do we now have to call Pep forever just the Catalan guy, the bald guy, the dodgy avant-garde knitwear guy?
That would be too specific, Rog. Just be like Spanish guy or European guy.
Yeah, I think the Catalan guy would be his assassin name. But Oh my God, we should just call every footballer. It'd be so much easier for all of us. The ginger bastard guy. You know exactly who that is, right?
Yeah. Sean Dyche.
Oh my God, it was the most literal put some respect on my name of all time. City. Honestly, City counted little in response, unable. The admirable organisation withstood them. I think there were a couple of Calvin Phillips rangefinders. Haaland, oddly subdued, 1 shot, 10 touches in the box, largely being marked out the game by Craig Dawson and Max Kilman, as Pep just sat there in agony in the stands like a general, looking on from a hilltop far away as his cavalry was eviscerated on the battlefield below, and his team were out-tacticked by Gary O'Neill. Nunes, what's the score? Sang the astonished home fans down the stretch. What a day for Roll Gold. Wolves fans, by the way, you've said it, they played so well this season. The Liverpool game also, you mentioned the United game. Here, 1 shot on goal, 2 goals, which is incredible. A weekend to remember forever. Local rivals Aston Villa coming to Molineux next. City's 100% start of the season over, Davo. First league defeat since May. Pep lambasted Dias, Nunes, Kovacic for not following his plans pre-game. But the weird thing is this proof of anything, these 2 losses in a row, Carabao and then this one? Or is it just like, when Meta goes down, it's just like, it's just gone down. It's still a colossal world-dominating machine.
I think more than that, you sort of fear that this is the sort of thing that just makes Manchester City stronger, that they managed to sort of...
pretending to be human?
Yes, and
vulnerable.
Maybe even for other teams, they follow that Wolves or Newcastle game plan to their own, tragic ends. So I feel like they will regenerate, Rog, and Pep will have more to yell at them about, and they will come back stronger.
Wouldn't want to be the team who have to play City next in the league.
No,
checks notes. Arsenal.
Okay, Rog, talking of Bournemouth 0, Arsenal 4, an ascendant Arsenal team pay a trip to the woeful Cherries, and they deliver a masterclass. One of those games where it was hard to tell where Arsenal's brilliance ends and Bournemouth's ineptitude began. Goals from Saka, Odegaard, Kai Havertz. Wait, Kai Havertz? That's not a joke. And even Ben White do the business here. Arsenal are up to 3rd. They're just 1 point behind City.
Arsenal coming in off that North London derby draw with Tottenham, unbeaten in their opening 6 games for the first time in 9 long years, facing the struggling Cherries, still without a win all season. Big blow, at least as far as American Bournemouth fans was concerned. No Tyler Adams, shockingly, in the squad. Remember, he'd return finally midweek to log a substitute appearance in the Carabao Cup win over Stoke after 200 agony-filled days out with a hamstring injury. News of that injury would get even worse after the game. Cherry's manager, Andoni Raiola, said, quote, "It's true, he's going to be out for some time, for sure." I think it's the same area. I've got to say, Davo, watching Tyler run out against Stoke filled me with such joy. God, this injury, all I can say is we wish him courage and we will wait to hear more. But back to this game. where from a health perspective, it was positive news from the Arsenal treatment room. Declan Rice back. Kai Havertz got the nod over Fabio Vieira in the Arsenal midfield. 20 long club games without a goal for him. And that old dramatic rule, if Chekhov's gun taught us anything, it's that you never hang a Havertz in the first act if it's not going to go off in the third. And before the game, very warm hug. I love this, David. Mikel Arteta and Iriola, two gents, incredibly born within 5 miles of each other in Basque country, grew up playing together as kids. Also, two gents who were perpetually into their sweaters. Both were dressed like Rob Lowe's character from Wayne's World. Both look like they're honestly going to attend the worst key party this side of the South Coast. But it is amazing, Davo. There are more great coaches in one tiny part of a province of Spain than there are in our entire nation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Arteta, wow, he got Arsenal drilling. I would actually argue in the favour because I've seen Bournemouth, be quite effective this season at times. And I got to tell you, Arsenal just dominated them in every single phase of play.
Yeah, Saka and Ketia, Ødegaard constantly combining in little triangles down the right-hand side, which seem to make the Cherries defenders' heads for reals resemble the exploding head emoji. Saka scored, Ødegaard clinical from the penalty spot. Bournemouth looked like they've been doing reckless tackles in training. Second half, Ryan Christie needlessly steamed into Ødegaard. Second penalty gifted to Arsenal. And what was fascinating wasn't Saka that took it. Wasn't Ødegaard, who'd already scored one, but the ball given, to the aforementioned Kai Havertz, the man who stepped up and made, God, it was an agony watching, to be candid. I was so dying for the man, but he made no mistake. And as he scored, you could see first a relief roll off him into the afternoon atmosphere, just the way the Arsenal teammates mobbed him. They all felt his agony. They were all elated. He looked like a gent who just finished his first session on the car map, to be candid. First goal since March 18th. As I say, first goal in 20 long club games. To me, when I watched it, I thought it was lovely. I thought it was smart of Arteta to get that press narrative off his struggling players back. But GFOP at Crucifer, one of many to tweet their disdain to us, they wrote, they really gave Kai the penalty there? Premier League participation trophy? A pity penalty. What do you think, David?
I mean, look, the one thing you hear about Kai Havertz consistently, sort of behind the scenes, is that in training, he wows every single one of his teammates. He did it at Chelsea, and he's doing it again at Arsenal. And I think his fellow players know how good he is. He definitely has some, let's call it performance anxiety on the main stage during actual games. But I think this was, yes, it was about Arteta, but it's also about his fellow players. I think his fellow players know how good he is, and they want him to be great for them. And in a year when, we said on the pod last week that Arsenal may have a more realistic chance of winning the Champions League than winning the Premier League. They have a legit Champions League winner, scored the winning goal in a Champions League final. I think they want Kai Havertz to be good and have confidence beyond training. So it seems smart to me.
God bless. Arsenal fans unleashed a song they've clearly been dying to bellow for some bloody time. 60 million down the drain. Kai Havertz scores again. Set to Shakira's Waka Waka. Ben White would add a 4-0 Bournemouth. Got to be said, tough start to the season. Fixture-wise, keep telling yourself this, Bournemouth fan. You play 4 of the Premier League's top 6. Also play Brighton, Brentford, West Ham. Fear not. You play Everton next. But Arsenal move within 1 point of Manchester City. They are one now of only 2 Premier League teams, along with their North London rivals, who are unbeaten after 7 games. Only downside, they saw Bukayo Saka limp off in the 76th minute after getting kicked out of the game. Dudon is honestly like North London Allen Iverson, just gets battered repeatedly. Arteta said of his injury, it was, quote, a pretty bad knock, but it was great to see him in training this morning. Gabriel Jesus also took a knock. Champions League game midweek, and then next Sunday, the clash of civilizations. They will host top of the table, four-peat seeking Manchester City. Dave, I cannot wait for this game, right? Roll on Sunday.
I hope City play in Sky Blue. I hope Arsenal playing red and white. It always looks so good. The red and white against the sky blue. It's one of those colour matchups that really works well in the Premier League fixture list. Okay, my game of the weekend. Man United 0, Crystal Palace 1. A mere 79 years after liberating the Dutch manager's grandfather in the Netherlands, Roy only goes and hands Erik ten Hag a big fat L. A quite textbook away performance from Palace here, highlighted by a 25th minute Danish moonshot from Joachim Andersen that didn't even give Onana a chance to make an error. From there, a combination, however, he could have done a little bit better. From there, a combination of excellent Sam Johnston saves and some luck from Uncle Roy's rabbit foot. See Palace head back south with all 3 points. Palace leapfrog United into 9th place. United sit 10th with just 9 points in the first 7 games.
A remake of the midweek Carabao clash, which United one-handedly 3-0 against a slightly second-string Palace. All the good vibes in that game with Moroccan King Amrabat. He made his debut, filled in on left-back on this day. Mason Mount, he's back from injury. Erik ten Hag muttering vaguely about momentum, a word it turns out he seems to understand in the same way as Alanis Morissette has a handle on the term ironic. Hoyland, began all the eager Labrador puppy trying to assert himself. Terry Mitchell cleared his most clinical chance off the line. Palace yet to score a first half goal all season until Joachim Andersen changed all that with some thunder of wonder. A low Eze free kick, poorly headed out by Hoyland. Ball glanced out to the Danish centre-back. They were incredible, instinctive, lash, a shot so snapped, so fierce, so potent, so accurate. As you said, Onana didn't even have a second to blunder.
Yeah, he middled it, Rog. He middled it, a good cricket expression, and just hit it so hard, so well. It seemed to go a little bit through Onana, but might have been a deflection, might have been some curve on the way. But wow, what a finish. Just hit at speed.
Second half, the United Garnacho lively, created some mayhem, but Palace just scrapped away, kept them out, everything in and around the line. Gay, particularly enormous.
Yeah, what a player.
United, 19 shots. That should be enough to win, but so few were really clear-cut opportunities. The boos rang down around Old Trafford at the final whistle. 4 defeats in 7 games this season. Worst start to a campaign since 1990, when Alex Ferguson was attempting to turn around the malaise that he'd inherited. Ten Hag, with all the players in that squad, there's some bloody good footballers. A -4 goal difference. I think they've only scored once in 7 games this season. That is one of the biggest problems of many problems. It's incredible to witness, despite spending real money. Lots of it, this is a sidebar, ending up in the pockets of Ten Hag's agent, which is pissing off so many United fans. Ten Hag still trying to work out midfield balance. Casemiro, Mason Mount, Bruno, Rashford, just 1 goal all season out of sorts. Like his team, looking middling, looking lost. I do think Ten Hag is a good manager. Like Unai Emery at Arsenal, I was thinking about that this weekend. He does seem to be a man who is sinking amidst almost the organisation, the culture around him.
You mean like would be a great manager, rather like Emery, a great manager at another team, but perhaps not quite enough for Man United. He is starting to get a furrowed, anxious look on his brow that we've not seen before.
The dead man that we have, though, it's the dead man stare of Mourinho down the stretch, of Ole down the stretch, of Ralph Rangnick down the stretch, of all of them. It's just like I am completely and utterly I'm in King's Landing, and I'm just being utterly outmaneuvered by these realities. Having said that, Roy Hodgson, 76 years of age, a win at Old Trafford. I think he's unbeaten in 5 there now. First manager ever to do that in Old Trafford history. Devo, that joy, just a man, a wily old fox, reveling in the opportunity to raid the chicken coop over and over again. It was magnificent to witness.
Yeah, I mean, look, the performances that he and his assistant manager Ray get out of the team, often by Ray comes up in his little shorts and has a good yell at some individuals during the game, then goes back into the dugout. It's wonderful to watch those two work together. It's just wonderful to see Roy figure out these plans week after week after week to frustrate these teams. I would say, for the second week in a row, Palace had the best player on the field. Eze just looks better than everybody who played for Man United. He looked like the true Man United player on the field. during this game. But just a great win tactically. So they're just endless running, pressing whenever they could. And then at the back, some, last-ditch defending, which you have to have when you go up and play against the big teams. Just wonderful to see them play so well. Delighted for Steve and everybody over there. Okay, wow, this was the shock result of the weekend, I think. Aston Villa 6, Brighton and Hove Albion 1. Two of the Premier League's hottest startups meet in a Glassdoor.com derby. And the reviews were quite convincing here, Rog, as Ollie Watkins' second hat-trick of the season, the other coming against Hibs in the Europa Conference League, highlight an emphatic Villa win. They vault up into 5th place in the table, one spot ahead of the Seagulls, both teams with 5 wins and 2 losses. But it is the Unai they told you not to worry about that triumphs here.
Yeah, clash of two of the most intense, tactically innovative managers, both of whom have swooped in and transformed their entire clubs, leading them into Europe with their furious, meticulous ideas. Third place Brighton and Hove Albion facing Aston Villa, a Villa who had spent the week fuming about their home kit, Castore. They said the players have said their kits are made out of lead and bricks and anchors. It's heavy, David.
I've never wanted a Castore kit more. I love it that they show the sweat. It looks great for my over 55s tennis, Rog. I think I'm going to be wearing Castore for the rest of the season.
Head to toe.
I love it. I love it.
God, love. It's very good. It's the official outfit for hot yoga aficionados. But both managers rang in the changes because it's the system, not the player. Both teams taking different kinds of risks early. One proactive, Brighton obsessive in possession. One extremely reactive, Villa working up a sweat in their kit, pressing up to the halfway line to try and contain their opponents, jailbreaking the press, going long whenever they could. Both strategies of immense composure and self-confidence and high risk. And it was Villa for whom it worked first. 14th minute, Cash getting in behind Matoma, rolled the ball across to Ollie Watkins, who couldn't miss his first touch of the day in the penalty area. 4th successive game against the Seagulls. He's found the back of the net. He proper 8 Seagulls. 7 minutes later, Ollie Watkins again, unplayable, with the England squad set to be announced this week. Again, Brighton pushing up, again leaving immense amount of space behind. Again, Ollie Watkins in transition, cutting inside, lashing home with a smart reverse thrash the game. Essentially like watching Brighton try and juggle flaming axes and then miss time and catch after catch and being punished. Watkins nipped any thoughts Brighton had of getting back into it. After Ansu Fati's first goal for the club, finishing off his hat-trick in front of an admiring Gareth Southgate. What do you think of him, Davo? Is he, well, I don't know why pundits are not all saying this, is he like Flo Balogun, but English?
Look, he's a utility striker, meaning that he can score with his head, he can score with both feet, he can run with the ball, he can get in decent spaces, he can sort of get into the mixer, he can do all sorts of things as a striker. What he's lacked in previous seasons, perhaps, has been this killer instinct, that sort of Alan Shearer-like, that Harry Kane-like ability to just always believe when he shoots the ball that the ball's going into the back of the net. I'd love to meet his psychological coach, because now that's what he's added. He's added that incisive killer instinct, love him. Love what he brings to the game. If he weren't English, Rog, he would be on the cover of everything right now. He's almost been a little bit hurt because he's, playing on an unfashionable team, as an English player in the Premier League.
Watkins.
Watkins.
Second hat-trick of the season for Watkins. First in the Premier League for 3 years. And for Villa, 6th goal came in the 97th minute, which gave Villa 3rd place over Brighton on goal difference. 10th home win in a row. Best in 40 years. Best Villa since Sevilla Leopolda. Can you imagine how bad a beatdown it would have been, David, if Villa's shirts were not obscenely heavy?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I mean, this game became like watching, honestly, Europe treat the United States to a beatdown in the Ryder Cup. Brighton, the way they play, the high risk, the high reward. This was really a risk day, like when they got smashed 5-1 by a team that rhymes with Weverton last season. I still can't believe that happened, but they can always be got at. And John McGinn said something brilliant post-game. He said, when we had the tactics meeting this morning, I thought it would either be 6-1 to us or 6-1 to them. Thankfully, it was to us. Brighton, they're feeling the toll of the European competition as well as a domestic one. De Zerbi admitted that post-game, and they're about to run a gauntlet, Davo. Marseille at home, midweek, Liverpool, Manchester City, then Ajax.
Yeah, rotating a lot of players in that squad as well to deal with these additional games. West Ham 2, Sheffield United 0. The Blades limp in off that 8-0 battering at Newcastle. And if there is one man who loves a bit of chip butty scraps, it's David Moyes, and a bit of East London liquid football, capped by Jared Bowen's 5th goal of the season and a Thomas Souček finish. They do the business here. West Ham up to 7th, Sheffield United still nailed to the bottom of the Premier League.
A routine win. Yes, West Ham now have routine wins against a truly feeble Sheffield United. West Ham were cruising. Jared Bowen contractually obliged to score every week. 5th goal of the season for that Taylor Twellman lookalike. 2nd goal with the addition of the ferocious Edson Alvarez behind him. Thomas Souček pushing forward, playing more advanced role football. He finished a lovely flowing move. Yes, West Ham now have lovely flowing moves. Who says Moyes can't have nice things? He got to shut the game down, declare victory after just 37 minutes, saving his team's batteries for battles to come. But his opposite number, Paul Heckingbottom, Sheffield manager, continues to sit on the hottest of hot seats. Did love his comments midweek, Dave, after that 8-0 beatdown against Newcastle last weekend. He said, Prince Abdullah was on the phone to me straight after the game. We speak regularly. And I just love that notion. Prince Abdullah and Paul Heckingbottom just cutting it up.
Newcastle 2, Burnley 0. The Toon win their 3rd on the spin thanks to a 14th minute blast all the way from Buckhead from former Atlanta United standout Miggy Almiron. Alexander Isak added a 2nd, and after a wobbly start to the campaign, the Fighting Piffs are up to 7th in the table. Burnley still without a win.
One of the most forgotten but existential soap memories on Eddie Howe's LinkedIn. The 21 down months he spent as Burnley manager, sandwiched in between those 2 rich spells in Bournemouth 11 years ago. A trivial pursuit question now, rather than that career quandary it must have felt like at the moment. And how he's changed. Burnley now, not so different. They're optimistic. They're now proactive, but they're also severely outgunned under Vincent Company. They're a team who'd gone to just 1 point from their first 5 Premier League games and were never within shot of getting another one here against Newcastle. Miggy Almiron, just an absolute Paraguayan pearler to open up the scoring. Toon finished them off with an Isak penalty. Newcastle fans now have the true joy of a Champions League theme song once again ringing out at St James's Park as Mbappe goes head to head with one of his greatest global rivals, the surging Anthony Gordon. To borrow a Louis van Gaal quote, what is this world twisted?
Nottingham Forest 1, Brentford 1, a feisty second half between 2 of the Premier League's middle distance runners along the banks of the River Trent. After a drab first 45 in which neither side registered, the second period sparked to life. In the 56th minute, Senegalese international Moussa Niakate was sent off for standing on Yohan Wissa's heel. And then the Bees took the lead from the resulting dead ball with that tall drink of Danish water, Christian Norgard heading home past Matty T in the tree's net. But Stevie Cooper loves a bit of a script, and a mere 7 minutes later, Forest hit back with Argentine Nicolas Dominguez's looping header. It found its way into the net, and it ended honours even.
God, an incredible header in this one. It's fascinating watching Matty Turner post-game on NBC take responsibility for what he felt were points dropped. The ball, he talked about how it almost went through him, how he has to do better. I love watching him. I love listening to him. I love that kind of leadership. It's got to be said, Forest lucky. Wissa should have had a penalty. Matt Turner got caught on the ball. Matty took out his man from a certain non-American angle, I think you could say. But Godspeed in a forgettable game in the rain that should ultimately, for both teams, just end up being a moment on the way to mid-tier table fodder, which I'm sure both teams would be delighted with. Brentford, though, slightly concerned. 5 matches now without a win.
Okay, coming up right about the time this pod is released, a West London derby, Rog. Fulham versus struggling Chelsea. That's an understatement. Rog, you're going to be covering that on tomorrow's Do It Live. It's a massive game for my boys in blue.
Yeah, I mean, God, I don't know how you're feeling, but I imagine that you're in my territory where I used to exist. Well, I still do, where my weekends actually become better when Everton are not playing. I did love this letter was in a tweet from at David McCabe82, a follow-up to the story we talked about last week's pod, Pochettino's good luck lemons, which he talked about in great depth ahead of last weekend's game. David asks, it's a good one for you, David. If the lemons started working and were the reason for Spurs' success after Poch's 2 years at Tottenham, then what was Pochettino's contribution? Wouldn't you save yourself Poch's salary by just putting the lemons out, waiting for them to start working and having them manage Chelsea Football Club?
Don't think for a second that this isn't the kind of advanced analytical thinking that Todd Boehly has brought into Chelsea. I think we could see a massive $45 million a year contract to, some lemons, a bowl thereof, to guide this team. We could see it happen. Chelsea looked a little bit better in the Carabao Cup when they beat Brighton midweek, although that result was brought into some context by Aston Villa's 6-1 thrashing of them. So who knows? Chelsea playing slightly better football, certainly getting some slightly better performances out of a few players, but they've now got some suspensions. They still have a boatload of injuries. We'll see. You have no idea. I still believe that Willian will be the best. Willian will be the best player best non-American player on the field this evening in West London, Roger.
David McCabe82 will know when Chelsea have taken your idea seriously, and I do believe they will be running the numbers on it when they spend in the transfer window over $100 million on more lemons.
Okay. Well, that brief departure into Chelsea territory delays the inevitable, Roger. No matter how badly Chelsea get beat tonight, it will not be as bad as what we're about to discuss. Everton 1, Luton Town 2. The Hatters get their first ever Premier League win at Goodison Park. Actually, that's their first ever Premier League win, and it happened to be at Goodison Park. Goals from Tom Lockyer and Carlton Morris rendered some DCL slop superfluous. Rog, you just won back-to-back games between the Premier League and the Carabao, and then this happens.
Well, I'm going to just preface it for my own benefit by just chanting a line from Indian spiritualist Sri Chinmoy. Surrender is a journey from the outer turmoil to the inner peace. That's what I've got to tell myself before I dive into this one. Davo, Everton losing to Luton bloody Town. Luton bloody Town.
At home.
This weekend will be remembered by world historians as the most Everton thing that ever Evertoned.
That's amazing.
How predictable was it that Everton, modicum of hope after 2 straight wins, would then utterly soil themselves against written-off Luton Town? Luton Town, who had not, let me remind you, experienced a victory in the top flight in 31 agony, trauma-filled, just bottom-feeding years. It is known. This was so predictable. Even I predicted it in Friday's newsletter, The Ravens. Subscribe now in my match previews. Davo, do the dark and tear-stained honours and run it back.
Well, number one, you do predict Everton doom every single weekend. So that's nothing. A stop clock is correct twice a day, Rog. So that's not saying anything. But it is as if those 2 wins, that modicum of hope, that they existed only to make this even more disappointing when it happened. They were wins in the service of just more disappointment.
Which is predictable. Read it back to me. What I wrote in The Raven.
Luton fans, he wrote, prepare for your finest day of the season, the one in which you fleetingly show the world you can play like 1970 Brazil. I have zero expectations of a good Everton outcome in this game. To imagine any other result than a shock Luton win is to be Charlie Brown running at a football while Lucy is holding it.
Rodstradamus.
Yeah.
And it was also predictable. Luton Town beat us. We were just beaten up, Davo, in front of our own fans in our own house by Luton bloody Town. Like having the snot kicked out of you by Milhouse from The Simpsons with your mum watching. We started with confidence. I got to say, we started with confidence born of those 2 great wins against Brentford, then against Aston Villa in the Carabao, which is the only tournament that really matters. Dwight McNeil, James Garner, just rolling sight finders, agony past the post. And again, there was a moment, since I keep doing this, there's a moment when Everton is so dominant in these games that I start to I started to feel sorry for the opponent. Oh my God, we're doing this to you. This is how bad you are. That Everton are absolutely destroying you. They were so abject in that first 20 minutes. Shot after shot whizzed past the Luton goal. By the way, same feeling I felt against Fulham, who ended up beating us, and against Wolves. And as I felt that feeling, that sadness, that pity for my opponent, my foe, I realized exactly that same fate would meet us. I knew exactly what would follow. Everton crapped the bed twice, won a quite beautiful goal for Tom Lockyer, opened the scoring. Beautiful because of who he is. This is a gentleman that collapsed on the pitch during May's Championship playoff final, suffered atrial fibrillation 126 days later, scoring that goal in his game's first ever Premier League win. You know, there's a beauty, even in my agony, there's a beauty, a reminder in life, nothing is promised, but it would get worse for Everton. Another set piece, just a basic ball over the back. I think it was the Ted Lasso special that Luton did on us. Carlton Morris, acres of space, didn't err in his finishing. And as they celebrated, they were giggling, they were laughing. The Hatters were laughing that we weaklings are winning. My lip reading may have been off, but that's what it felt like. Everton got back into the game, stroke of halftime, DCL, some Dukey course slop. Second half, the one big chance, David, Beto came on. And we love Beto. We've yearned for Beto and DCL to play two at the top, us Everton fans, for ages. The two proceeded never to pass to each other. It was a disaster. But Beto, the beautiful story is 4 years ago, this man was playing in such low-level league in Portugal that he worked at KFC. He was for years he worked at KFC, and in this game he finished as you would expect someone who actually, still works in the KFC to finish, who's not a footballer, just kept heading over from close range. And that was that huge love. I've got to say, huge respect to Luton Town fans. I want them to be the story. They earned their first Premier League win in club history, 2 shots on target, 2 goals. Delirium for them, the boys in orange. Everton lost 13 of their last 19 home games, including 7 of their last 8, all 4 this season. I think they scored once in the process. We are what Linda Yaccarino is to CEO leadership, David. So it's gotten so bloody bad that Josh Wander of 777 was at Goodison on the same day as the Washington Post wrote this incredible, awful, damning investigative piece against their read it for yourself, essentially true slumlord, dodgy morality, bereft business practices. The same weekend that one of their clubs in their multi-club network, Vasco da Gama in Brazil, is being threatened with a transfer ban via FIFA for failure to pay their players. I mean, if red lights are not flashing all over the place, I don't know who's going to see them. But at the same time, we were so bad, Dave, in this game. Everton was so bad. And yes, 777 might be ambulance chasing distressed asset pursuers, as the Vasco da Gama evidence suggests, that they have no money.
Allegedly.
David, whatever they are, however awful they are, I've started to realize they're probably still too good for us. We probably still don't deserve them.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just it's tough to know. It is going to be a season on the brink, Rog. It's going to be, I've said this to you at the beginning of the season, it's going to be a season right on the edge of all of this. By the way, Chelsea might be right there with you, but it's going to be a season on the brink.
Oh my God. The only way I've been trying to gem myself up, there's this Greek concept that I've learned about, philoxenia. Philoxenia, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Greek listeners, I'm so sorry. It's about the Greek approach to hospitality, to tourism, where you don't view visitors as guests, but you immediately welcome them as a member of your own home. By stepping into your home, strangers immediately become family. I think the etymology is it's an expression of love and friendship towards strangers, like Zeus and Hermes' quest to find refuge. And that is what we are right now. It's what I'm telling myself. We are terrible at football, terrible, but we are world class at philoxenia.
Yes. No, Luton, this is not a home game for us. This is a home game for you. Come into our stadium and feel like you're at home.
Yes. World class at philoxemia. You'll never sing that. We are with our invincible season with its philoxemia rumbles on. We face winless Bournemouth. Brace yourself, cherries. You are going to win. First win incoming. And then, Davo, on the morning of my youngest son's bar mitzvah, with my whole family over, including Red Nige, we face Liverpool. A reminder of the life truth.
No.
It's always darkest just before it goes pitch black.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, before we go pitch black, a quick reminder about everything we've got happening at Men in Blazers this week, powered by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. A new episode of European Nights tomorrow. Also a special Champions League edition of Do It Live tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Eastern. The link is all over our socials, so come and listen to this live pod recording. And as always, you're going to have a chance to ask your questions live on the pod. And please, please, please support our new daily news podcast, Early Kickoff. Our team in London is waking up early, even London time, to serve up this pod and get you ready for your day. A full English breakfast in podcast form. And remember, it's on a different feed than this one. Search Men in Blazers Early Kickoff, support and subscribe. Rog, can we get a final toast to close us out?
Oh, I want to raise my shot of Jägermeister, this bolt of human emotion in the shot glass, to the opening weekend of the fast improving Women's Super League in England. Highlight of the affair, league record 54,115 fans rolled into Emirates to watch Liverpool shock 1-0 defeat upon Arsenal and my mate Jonas Eidevall's team. Defending champion Chelsea beat Tottenham 2-1. Opening goal scored by 22-year-old Mia Fishel from San Diego, California. Big fish. A week on from a US women's national team debut, former UCL Bruin found the back of the net with a smart header debut goal to power the dynastic 5-peat searching champions into the lead. Lauren James inevitably finished off the game with a sumptuous volley, but such joy for Fishel. It was brought from Tigray to spell Sam Kerr. Just a ball of wonder in her own right. Grown up as a fanatical Chelsea fan, played as many games as she could as a kid in Chelsea kit. This must have felt like a moment cut from dreams, hard work, and just rapturous reality. Courage.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Okay, you can follow us on Twitter at Men in Blazers, at MC Davies, at Rosh Bennett, on Instagram at Men in Blazers, at MC Davies, on Facebook with the Men in Blazers, on Twitch, twitch.tv/Men in Blazers. Also, our TikTok, look for it at Men in Blazers. You can always email us at meninblazers@gmail.com. We love and cherish getting your emails. Venderpunk Rog.
War Pig.
Was that a Rabona?
I like snacks.
Balds win, Balds win.
Take that, Gloria.
Balds lose.
To Tweed.
Abrigado, rock on, mate.
Kung Fu fight in America. Love you, Davo.
I love you, Rog.
Love your philoxemia. Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage.